The Chinese city of Beijing and Zhangjiakou will jointly host the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Preparation is underway in both cities. For China, it's not just about the honor of hosting a mega international sports meet, the exhilarating experience of which was deeply felt during the Beijing Summer Games in 2008, but rather to instill both the culture and spirit of winter sports among 1.4 billion people and many more from all over the world. The story of Michael Eddie Edwards is a pure reflection of exactly that spirit. He is remembered in the history of the Winter Olympic Games as someone with an unconquerable spirit and profound love for winter sports. I met him during his first trip to China recently and had a great chat. Before we played that conversation, let's take a look at this.
As your coach, I think you're crazy. But as your friend, fly.
An incredible experience, a passionate man, a true story. During the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary, Canada, Eddie set a British record during one of his jumps. Although he didn't win any awards, Eddie captured the hearts of fans with his never-say-die attitude. Edwards started his sports career as a downhill skier. To improve his chances to qualify for the Olympic Games, he moved to the US to train and switched to ski jumping because it was more affordable. He was handicapped by his nearsightedness, requiring him to wear thick eyeglasses at all times. That severely impaired his eyesight during the jumps that made him famous. He is a legend in the history of the Winter Olympics. Today, his story was made into a Hollywood film, Eddie the Eagle. Taron Egerton, who played him in the film, expressed his enthusiasm for the role.
Well, I was a huge fan when I, heard about Eddie, which happened when we first started talking about the movie, but we always wanted to create something that was very affectionate and celebratory and, championed him and reminded people that actually what he did was a really cool, amazing thing,
During his recent trip to Beijing, Eddie the Eagle recounted his story.
You finally made it.
That's right, and that was the realization for me, because it was a dream since I was about 8 years old to represent my country at international level and to hopefully go for an Olympic Games. I didn't know that I was going to do it.
You were quite a kid, I have to say.
Oh yes, yes. I used to watch the Olympics on TV and watch our athletes performing, and I thought it'd be great, to be so good at your sport, to be able to represent your country at international level and wear a tracksuit with Great Britain on the back and all that kind of thing. And I thought it was lovely. And
idol at the time when you were a kid? Do you have an idol at the time when you were a kid?
I did, but not British. Most of my idols tended to be international.
It's okay, you can name them.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily a British show.
Back then it was people like Daley Thompson was great. Torvill and Dean back then was fantastic. All those guys.
But
going back when I was 8 years old, I don't remember the names of many of the athletes, but as I got older, and then when I studied skiing, it was Ingemar Stenmark and Phil and Steve Mayer, the Mayer brothers, and Veireiter and Wernsberger and Franz Klammer and all those sort of people. So yeah, I remember them quite well.
And you were among them eventually at the opening ceremony.
At the opening ceremony, yes. I arrived at Calgary. Went to the opening ceremony and saw the Olympic torch being run around the track, and then they lit the Olympic flame, and I thought, gosh, this is it. This is the realization of my ambition, my dream to get to an Olympic Games, and I finally made it against all the odds. I had no money, no training facilities, no snow, no ski jumps, no trainer, no sponsors, nothing. And yet still I managed to get to those Olympic Games and represent my country, and it was wonderful.
I don't know you, but when I was extremely excited, sometimes I got lost. I don't feel that I know what to do next. What about the opening ceremony right after it? How did you prepare yourself to eventually go to the specific category you need to participate? Prepare yourself, cool-minded, make sure all the gears are right. You got the right mind. Yeah. Everything. How did that happen?
Well, it didn't. It didn't really. At the opening ceremonies, it was great because once they lit that Olympic flame, it was the kind of the pinnacle, the the climax of the show, and then I just sat there and watched that Olympic flame for about an hour, and then somebody come and nudged me and they said, oh, it's time to go, and then I sort of came to and realised that the stadium was empty, everybody had gone, and I was still looking at that Olympic flame, and then I went, well, my problems were really, there were a lot of problems at Calgary with equipment. When I flew to the Olympic Games, flew to Calgary, my bindings had been crushed on the plane and I had no spare bindings. So I had to look around for some spare stuff, alternatives, and eventually found them. But it was one big mad rush going from here to there, and I was being dragged here and dragged there for interviews. And it was getting a bit chaotic, but I thought it was happening to everybody because I thought it was the Olympic Games and all the athletes, it was the same. So I just went with the flow. But I didn't realise that I was getting a little bit more attention than some of the other people, but that sort of came afterwards. But it was chaotic, but it was good fun too. It was 2 weeks and yet it flew by because I was doing either interviews, 24 hours a day, but it was great fun. I didn't want to sleep because it was such a dream for me to get to those Olympic Games. I wanted to enjoy every single second.
Not to even blink your eyes.
Not even blink. Don't go to sleep. Just enjoy the whole experience.
So what about that jump?
The jump, yes. The big hill, the 120 metre, or they called it the 90 metre back then. And there was 89,500 people at the bottom watching, and they all started shouting, Eddie, Eddie, and I was sort of waving to them, and they were kind of pushing me, inspiring me to go down and jump, and I was really, really scared because I hadn't done many 120 metre ski jumps, and I'm sure their cheering must have carried me the 71.5 metres that I jumped, or 71 metres that I jumped at Calgary. And the last 5 metres, I think it was because of the noise and the rush from all these people. It was fantastic, but it was a beautiful day, blue sky, there was no wind, and you know, I went for it, and it was wonderful.
You know, it's different. Some people have to be in their own world in order to perform very well, not to be encouraged or discouraged by the surrounding.
Yeah.
What about for you? Is the atmosphere important to you? Were people's cheering important to you? Or you were very much concentrating on what you need to do, technically speaking, one after another step?
Yeah, I have a sequence that I go through when I'm doing my ski jumping.
Tell me about it.
It starts sort of first thing in the morning, putting on my clothes. I always put it on in a certain sequence, left foot, right foot, that kind of thing, left arm, right arm. And it was the same with when I got to the ski jump, I would put my suit on, I would put my left boot on first, then my right.
Almost like a ritual in a way.
It is, because that sets the whole thought process. It helps me to start preparing, and it was right up to the point when I sit on that bar. I put my skis down, I put my left ski on first, then my right, I check my left, I check my right, check my goggles, I walk out, turn, check my bindings again, left and then right, and so I go through that whole sequence, and that's when I really focus on the jump. But in the meantime, before that, I still like to try and relax as much as possible. If I'm nervous, I tend to be quite happy and bouncy and energetic, and when there was all that crowd at the bottom, they were all starting to shout. I wanted to acknowledge the crowd, so I was sort of waving and things. I didn't want to ignore them. A lot of them were there to watch me ski jump. Some of them were hoping maybe that I would crash and burn and break arms and legs. But others were saying, you know, this is wonderful. But yeah, I wanted to acknowledge the crowd and say.
Did you try to persuade yourself, I need to be calm now because I'm gonna do what I've been preparing for a long time. This is it.
That's right, I do. But that's when I get my skis, when it's my turn to go. I usually start preparing 2 or 3 jumpers before it's my turn to go, and that's when I switch and I turn into ski jumping mode. And then I put my skis down, put my left ski on first, then the right, then the whole process starts to think about my technique, what I've got to do. and then walk out onto the bar, sit, turn, prepare, and then I go. I wave to the coach. At the time, it was the American team who was my flag man. He would sort of flag and say, yep.
How have you been dealing with injuries? Especially, you know, you picked up ski jump very late.
Very late.
In your sports career.
Yes.
And you were not having much professional support.
No professional support.
It's really scary. It sounds really scary to me.
It is. It is very scary. And
do you feel scared when you think back?
Oh, yeah. Even now, I haven't ski jumped for 20 years, and I ski jumped about 6 weeks ago, and I was very scared then. I'm always scared when I do my ski jumping, but it's important to be scared. Because when you're scared, you then focus and you concentrate. Because you know that if you get it wrong, the consequences could be horrendous. You could kill yourself, you could paralyze yourself, you could break arms and legs and all sorts of things.
But you did. I mean, you did injure yourself.
Oh, yes, I did.
How have you been dealing with them?
It was very difficult, because even at Calgary, I was still very much a beginner. I'd only been jumping for 20 months. Everybody else had been jumping for 20 years.
Yes.
And so every time I got onto a ski jump, whether it was a 90 or 120 meter, there was always that thought that this could be my last ski jump. I could just do it totally wrong, land on my head, and that would be it. It would all be over. So there was always that nervousness and that trepidation that this could be my last jump. So I've got to really focus and concentrate. And I did get it wrong a few times. Luckily enough, I didn't get it wrong to such a degree that I would kill myself. But I have fractured my skull a few times. I broke my jaw, collarbone, ribs, damaged my kidneys, damaged my knee. But I've got off quite lightly, so I think I've done okay, really.
Now when you think back, is it necessary for you to jump into the ski jump?
Ski jumping gives me a tremendous buzz. And although I'm very, very nervous when I'm at the top of the jump, because if I get it wrong, I could really hurt myself. But that's what I loved about the ski jumping, the psychology, that it's 95% psychological and only 5% physical effort. But I love that. I love being out of my comfort zone. I love pushing myself mentally, physically, and that gives me such a buzz.
Some compare you to be quote unquote the winter Forrest Gump. But I don't know. Do you feel comfortable with that analogy?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's cool.
You watched that movie?
I have, yes, a few times. Love it. It's great.
Why?
It's just a really nice, feel-good, inspirational film, and same as mine.
What was it like for you, from a ski jumper to a national and even international hero, and then the main character of possibly one of the most popular movies of the year?
Yeah.
What is that transition like for you?
It's it feels strange. It was not something that I wanted. It was not something that I was aiming for. It was kind of like a bonus. It was the byproduct of ultimately my dream to get to those Olympic Games. For me, getting to those Olympic Games was just the greatest thing, and I loved being there. What I wanted to do at Calgary was get a little bit of attention, turn that attention into sponsorship, and then carry on for the 92, 94, 98 and 2002 Olympics, and got better and better at ski jumping. And that's what I really wanted to do. When I got to Calgary, I got christened Eddie the Eagle. I thought, oh, that's cool. I wish I'd thought of it. But it's a great name. But through those Olympics, when people were watching and loved me being there, and then I got so much attention and it snowballed, got out of control, I kind of went with it, and I enjoyed it, but it was not something that was not my real aim. My real aim was to carry on my ski jumping and get better and better. Unfortunately, the authorities wouldn't let me carry on ski jumping, so I took on the role as Eddie the Eagle and travelled all over the world, and it was great fun, and I loved doing it. But it was not something that becoming famous wasn't something that I was aiming for. It was just a byproduct.
Do you like
I'm glad it happened, and I still enjoy it now. And having the film come out has brought it all up all over again, 28 years later.
Have you watched the movie yourself?
I have seen the movie twice.
Okay,
in
so
its
give us
entirety.
some suggestion. Give us some suggestion. Which detail you want us to specifically pay attention to?
Oh.
And that would really help us to understand Eddie.
Gosh, the ones that really start making me kind of well up. I love the stuff at the beginning as a child and doing my kind of things, doing my training to become an athlete. I loved that bit. That was lovely.
Why is that?
It's just, it reminded me of when I was a kid. You know, I used to put things on and do weights and throw things like a javelin.
Just to be there.
Just to be there and do the hurdles down the street. And yeah, we used to fall over all the time.
That's one suggestion. What about the other suggestion?
I love the bit where my mum had a tin that she gave me that I used to put all my broken glasses, you know, just like these.
By the way, this is a cool glass.
Yeah, thank you
nice.
very much. I still got them. These are the ones I wore at Calgary.
There we go, that's true.
And when I was a child, I used to break my glasses all the time. Not only, you know, building and playing, just every time I was breaking my glasses. So I put all these glasses in a tin, and then my mum gave me the medal, you know, my tin to put my medals in. That was a lovely moment. Yeah. But the biggest thing is towards the end when I actually do that ski jump at the Calgary Olympics. It's just a wonderful climax.
I'm really looking forward to it, Eddie, you know, after talking to you even more. and finally, before we go, you know, China, two cities, Zhangjiakou and Beijing, are holding their hands to host the Winter Olympic Games.
I know.
2022.
I know.
Are you going to be here?
I want to compete. I'm looking forward to watching it, and I think China will do a fantastic job. So I wish them all the luck for the Winter Olympics.
Any advice?
I hope China, if they start training hard now, they've got 6 years. So keep training, get your head down, get working, and I'm sure you'll have that gold medal on your chest. So I'll be rooting for you.
And get prepared. Left, right.
Left, right, left, right. All right, left. Whichever floats your boat.
Right, that's true. Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you for talking to us, and all the best to the movie and your story.
Thank you. Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
it.